Welcome back to Capital Radio 88.1 FM. You are still listening to Toki Mohoto on This is Africa. I've just had a lovely conversation with a filmmaker extraordinaire. Before him, it was Simam Kele, who represents an organization, or rather a creative outfit called Block Millennial, and Kagiso Modupe is the filmmaker I was in conversation with. And next on my guest list is Aluta Humbane, whom I'm still waiting for to log into our Zoom so we can start our conversation. In the absence of Aluta Humbane, I'm going to play a song by Miriam Makeba called Welela. As soon as Aluta comes back on air, we're going to start our conversation. Please enjoy the song Miriam Makeba, Welela. Are you ready for me?
Hi, Toki.
Hi, Aluta. How do you do?
I'm good. I'm sorry that I have to do it in the car. Yeah, it's been a crazy day.
No, you're not the first one. I'm playing a song behind the scenes. If you want me to fade it out, let me just fade it out so we can start a conversation. I want you to have as much time as we possibly can with the segment.
All right, sure.
Give me a second. I'm fading the song out. I'm also going to tell our guest that Humbane is here so we can start the conversation. Thank you. We'll talk now.
Thank you. All right.
Our next guest is here. Aluta Humbane is my next guest. We're going to be in conversation talking about not a controversial subject per se, but I suppose something or some conversations that we ought to have. It's like when you're in a family and your parents call in a meeting and they're like, we have to talk. You ask yourself a couple of questions and wonder where the conversation is headed, but it's one of those things that we must have. The topic that we're going to be tackling is looking at the phenomenon, or rather the reality of feminine males and the hypocrisy of heterosexual supremacy. Aluta Humbane, hello, sawubona, abusheni, molweni, konnichiwa.
Hala, Sanmanani. Greetings to every Capital listener. My name is Aluta. Unjani Putoki.
I'm good, thank you. I hunted for you like precious meat in a forest.
I am worth the value.
Part of my reason for wanting to look for you and roast you on This is Africa is because whenever we're in conversation, you have an ability to teach without being pompous. You engage a person without being defensive or offensive, and you are able to elucidate a point such that everyone leaves the room feeling Wow, why haven't I always been around Aluta? So I felt it fitting that the audiences of Capital Radio ought to hear also the pearls of wisdom that you share, but most importantly, understand why you chose a particular role in your advocacy field, as well as why is it that you felt passionate about the issue that we're going to be discussing today. So without any further ado, just please give us a purview into who exactly Aluta Humbane is.
All right, Aluta Humbane is in Gotenga, Utwalu 9 months. For those people who are not English speakers, it's the village maiden that doesn't bear 9 months. I'm a philosopher, musician, writer, photographer, but most importantly, because we live under discourses, I'm just a human being, because those discourses are constructs that previously exist.
Definitely. Thank you so much for that intro. And also, what is your feeling and reactions when people get confused as soon as you introduce yourself as a trans woman? I always assumed trans was for transportation or transferred until you taught me. Please teach our listeners as well, for those who may not know.
All right. I'm very fortunate that, I'm one of the people who actually engaged on my transition process, both medically and legally, through the legal route, because there's many different ways of transitioning. There's the social transitioning, there is the medical transition, and there's the legal transition. I'm going throughout the whole process. And part of the process includes psychotherapy, which kind of prepares me for the challenges that I'll encounter. Because remember, being trans is something that is not a normative. It's something that is looked at with an aha. So in my psychotherapy, I actually got to be equipped by my psychotherapist on how to actually be able to tackle issues such as neglect and rejection, etc. But overall, it's been quite an eye-opener because, when it comes across as, I can separate it into genders. The males are more inquisitive because they want to taste, they want to understand, but they want to experience me as if I am an object, which kind of removes me and kind of puts me in a position where I become defensive. At the same time, it's quite overwhelming for me to assert myself and tell people that I'm trans, because remember, there is one trans in like a whole room. Mm-hmm. So the whole experience needs you to be very brave to be able to come out. So my feelings are quite overwhelmed, but because I've been prepared, it actually kind of assists in how I mitigate that process. So I don't know if that makes sense.
It does a great deal. It does a great deal. And also, to what extent do you feel does culture and law embrace the changing reality of multiple genders and sexual orientation? Just to share before you answer, so I did a class of business ethics with my learners because I teach business science. And when we touched on the issue of multiple genders and sexual orientations, some learners actually wanted to go home before class was finished. To the shock.
It's actually quite very overwhelming and scary, because the idea is that people have the concept that gender exists as a heterosexual normative only. But there is about 56 genders that exist out there. Now, with regards to policy or law, the white paper is quite inclusive, because it is open-ended in terms of allowing for the rights to equality and dignity, which in essence allows for people to be. However, in practice and in principle, it becomes a challenge, because now you are going against cultural and societal norms, expectations, and preconceived ideas of what gender is about. So quite often, when you're looking at an African cultural perspective, you find that or sangomas, or shamans, you find that it's believed. So it's believed that, a lot of people come out culturally, because you might find that people believe that they're inhabiting a spiritual being of a woman, which is opposed to their own sexual identity or gender identity. And in essence, a lot of people have been, for the longest times, have been coming out. You'll find the male figure who is assumably a heterosexual, who will say, no, mina ngugogo mkhize.
Yes.
because of the fact that Uguti, you know, it's still very much linked to culture. So, but at the same time, there's a disjoint when it comes to society, because now the societal occurrences or things that we are used to is such that we have to fit in within the pattern of femininity and masculinity.
Yes.
And if you don't fit into that, then you become questionable. So to answer you, legally, I believe in the South African context, because the context is very, very important. If you go anywhere in other countries in Africa, especially, and in some Western countries, the paradigm is totally different. Because remember, again, politics is about the masses, and the masses want to appeal so that they can gain power. And that's the biggest challenge, because now it's a pushback against the ethical values that needs to be implemented. And people misunderstand the fact that gender is very fluid. You know, when we started off, when I came out as a gay person because that's what I knew. But then obviously I had to probe myself to say, hey, but you know, gay is a certain category of a person or a construct, but I don't fall within that. I am a cisgender woman. That's what I believe. And that's where, you know, the concept of trans, and the concept of trans being transitioning to the cisgender kind of as a caliber or understanding. Because remember, when a child is born, if you, based on your genitalia, you are assigned a particular gender. If you've got a penis, then you are deemed to be male. If you've got a vagina, then you are deemed to be female. And so because I was assigned male, and I was socialized in a particular way that fits the normative of a male character. But when I grew up, I felt like this normative is just not sitting well with me. I'm wearing clothes that don't belong to me. And that's where I had to embark on the journey. So with regards to gender and law and culture, again, you know, I did speak to the fact that there's about 56 gender identities.
Yes.
However, if you're looking at the acronym, it's LGBTIQ, which is about 7. What about all the other gender identities? Meaning that it now speaks to the fact that people are unique in their makeup, and we are not all the same.
Yes, true. Definitely. And I'm assuming the idea of coming out also has a lot of risks attached. I know so many who have been disowned by their families, and also the idea of coming out cannot be blanketed as a one size or a one approach fits all. What in your experience has been the most common, but obviously juxtapose that against the risks attached thereto?
Okay. Coming out is a process. Some people come out all their lives until they die. I'm still coming out. You know, I've come out as publicly, you know, presenting as transgender with a term, but I haven't socially transitioned, because remember that I'm transitioning medically and legally, etc. So medically, my bodily changes. I have not even been able to go into a shop and buy female clothes that will adjust my body, because I don't understand who I am. You know, because remember, I've been living in my own mind for the longest time. So the challenge is that, you know, the reality of being trans is that, for me, I feel like if you are not independent and if you are not enabled or empowered, it then works against you, because you'll apply for a job and you go into an interview and they'll be questioning whether you're male or female. And when you say you are trans, it's like, yeah. And I'm coming from a background where I was an educator. And you know, you feel like the principals of the school feel like, oh, okay, this person is going to influence a lot of children in the wrong direction, whereas I'm expressing myself. So there is a very, very big challenge when it comes to trans identifying bodies to exist. It's very, very challenging. I had to resign because of the fact that, you know, I was coerced to represent a masculine figure. I remember when I came into the school that I was teaching for the first time, I was told that you cannot wear blue chinos because a male figure is supposed to wear dark colors to represent power. And for me, that was the most depressing and most crippling experience. I subsequently had to resign in 2017 because I felt like there's no space for me, you know? And at the time I had not developed the willpower to be able to fight that, because at the end of the day I had not gone the psychotherapy which will equip me with the skills to be able to withstand that within the environment. So also, you know, some trans people are, you know, when you come across them, they present, you know, if they present as the opposite gender. So if it's a male, because of the imbalances in hormones, they'll present as female. And when that occurs, it subsequently throws off people. You have to validate yourself, and it's a battle. And that's quite often results, you know, for me, I'm still like, even right now, I'm going through a process of gender dysphoria because I've not done my surgery, and depression because now I'm faced with a society which does not understand me. There's one of me where I stay, and it is the most challenging thing. And if you are presenting or come across as the opposite sex, then it puts you in a dangerous position, because a guy will pick you up thinking you are female because you're medically transitioned and you've got your breast development. And then when you get into the bedroom and there's the penis, and then you're like, oh my gosh. And quite often, that's where a lot of trans people are subjected to being killed. And then obviously it's just it's good. It's still a very big challenge. And you know, for me, I always say that I wish that government, when a child is born, I know it's not feasible, because you cannot ask a child's gender identity when they are born, because it's a process.
Yes.
But you know, there needs to be kinds of barometers to gauge who this person is. Yeah.
Definitely. And you know, this is a touchy subject when you speak of coming out. In 2014, my sister had to commit suicide because she came from a community which saw her as a female who was assuming to be male. On the one end, you've got males who want to explore and experiment through her. And also, you've got a church that is saying there's only a heterosexual identity that you need to identify with. It's either or. And deep within herself, she was asking a lot of questions, because I think it may have been a confusing process. And the letter she wrote at the end was signed, "I think I will find peace in death," hence the need for her to commit suicide. And I'm allowing this to at the point you said, where you say a lot of trans people end up being killed or violated because you've transitioned medically or physically on top, but at the bottom, then it's an expensive operation that you need to undergo. And some people may obviously take this to divisive ends. Maybe if I can just wrap this with a question. What advocacy work are you involved in currently, and where can people find you if they wish to hear more of the wisdom that you have, as well as share experiences, and maybe perhaps be a pillar of support for those who are still going through the coming out process?
All right. So right now I'm in collaboration with an organization which was founded by Ms. Sazi Jali, which is called Trans Hope, which is kind of advocating for you know, affirming health, affirming exploration capabilities and possibilities for trans identifying bodies. And you know, just recently we were engaging, in fact yesterday we were engaging with different political parties on how, you know, there has not been a shift in there is the legal document which kind of puts us in a space, but when it comes to accessing healthcare as trans identifying bodies, it becomes a challenge, and it's quite an expensive procedure. I mean, you're looking at about R500,000 just to complete both the psychological, the medical, and the legal. Because I mean, if you have been living your whole life as umiste, when you finally transition legally, you have to change every certificate, and that costs money.
Yes,
If you are going for gender reassignment surgery, it costs about 300,000 just to get a vagina or a penile inversion. So, and to get your testes removed. So, I'm collaborating with TransHope to try and advocate for healthcare access, because our government has deemed trans issues as a cosmetic issue. It's very ironic because they've overlooked the psychological impact, which includes depression and a host of other mental issues, gender dysphoria included, to try and mitigate to ensure that trans identifying bodies are included. So I think, you know, I'd love to really carry on the conversation for people who are interested. I'm available on social medias. On Facebook, it's Aluta Humbane, or Aluta Humbane Worldwide. On Instagram, it's Aluta Humbane. And again, this is something that is very, very challenging because we are in the process of revolution.
Yes.
Previously, there have always been trans people, but they have not been vocal, they have not been visible. You know, we have to be thankful for the Freedom Charter. We have to be thankful for the Bill of Rights, for awarding us even an opportunity to be protected legally, because it goes a very big step. Not that we have to earn it, because I mean, who needs to earn
Yes.
existing, you know? But we have to be thankful because it gives us a platform for us to then advance the work of advocacy to make sure that the people who come after us do not suffer the same fate as us. At the same time, we also have to be careful because in the process of fighting and advocating for other people, our lives are at risk.
Yes.
You know, so, you know, I've even developed antisocial personality disorder, where I only socialize against people that I know, because now socializing against other people is a risk to me. Because what if they reject me? What if they don't understand me? What if they kill me? Because now they feel like I'm this odd thing.
Definitely. And I'm not one to be out of words, but I feel that this conversation needs a broader and a broader platform. One, number two, it needs more ears to listen, because I feel it's the two of us and the few audiences that we have, but someone somewhere is asking themselves questions they cannot answer by themselves or on their own. And somebody is saying, I'm willing to assist, but they're not sure where to start, how to go about doing it, and what risks do they invite to themselves, as well as you rightfully state. You're advocating, you're fighting for the right to exist, which shouldn't be the case, but you're also exposing yourself, and that's a risk on its own.
You know, I think it's every moral responsibility, because you might never know if you're going to be giving birth to a trans identifying child.
Yes.
Or a trans identifying family member. So, you know, we must not be ignorant of that fact that we are two humans, and there's already an internal battle within ourselves to accept ourselves at the face of a already constructed society. So my challenge to everybody is that, can we just be a bit more understanding? Can we be a bit more tolerant? Can we extend ourselves to say, sawubona ubani wena? You know, and quite often schools don't teach the concepts of gender, which needs to actually grow, because people know gender pronouns, they only know what's kono he or she.
Yes.
There's him, she, they, them, etc., which kind of contextualize a person's identity. And I think if we can get to a point where we can then meet a person and say, sawubona unjani, athi umuntu ngiyaphila, or I am fine, then you say, oh, okay, what do you want me to call you? Ngikubiza ngobani? What's your preferred gender pronoun? That's a very beautiful beginning, and start the conversation of us understanding and us being understood. And we are also not ignorant of the fact that we cannot say that people are ignorant and not accepting, because they are also brought into a world which is already structured to exist in a particular normative manner. So i-challenge mawuhlangana nomuntu njena, before uthi awusisi unjani or bhuti unjani, awuthi sawubona unjani, what's your preferred gender pronoun? And then whatever they tell you, even in our emails, even in how we present ourselves and we introduce ourselves, we should be introducing ourselves as saying, I identify, my preferred gender pronouns are she, he, because remember, we're at the earliest stages of educating and creating awareness. It will get to a point where we don't have to affirm our existence. I know we will not be there, but we are still in the transition process.
Without wasting any more of your precious time, and to thank you for the pearls of wisdom that you've shared, I'm going to play you out with Maluma, and the song is called Hawaii. I think it's a Latin or Spanish song. I don't know, but it's lovely. I danced to it, by the way. Thank you so much, Humbane. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much, Toki, for hosting us and for giving us the platform to actually share our experiences. It's such a powerful and liberating experience. And please carry on. We love the work that you do as Capital FM. I say 10 out of 10.
Do take care and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, Asante.